Good morning. My name is Michael Evans, and I'm writing a book, 21 Days to Change Your Life. And today is August 1st, the first day of this 21 days, and I am writing this book starting this morning. There's a few acknowledgments, a few notes that were taken in the days leading up to this, but the first chapter was written this morning. The way I write things, the way I process things is by speaking. So I voice recorded notes, and I'm just going to start the way I think books start, with a little background, acknowledgments, forward, whatever those things are. And then I will be reading chapter 1, which is first chapter written this morning. "21 days to change your life." Today is July 27th, 2024. In a few days, on August 1st, I will embark on a 21-day challenge to exceed what I thought was possible. I will document each day on a journey to see how much can be accomplished, how many things can be improved, and how many people can be encouraged and influenced on a path that leads to a higher calling. I believe we are created with a purpose, and anytime we fall short of that purpose that we were created to do, we don't experience the fullness of life. I will do all the things I was told I couldn't do, or that I wasn't good at, or that I dreamed of, and I believe I can accomplish all of them in 21 days. I am guilty of falling short of my potential, and at 47 years old, I refuse to have any more regrets. My son Mason, who ended his life at 21 years old, was born on August 21st. I will dedicate the first 21 days of August to him and his memory. I will be the person I should have been while he still lived in this fallen world. I will be the person I was created to be, in hopes that others will follow. I will be the person that Mason deserved. I will be the man that he could have become. I will be a good husband. I will be a good dad and a grandpa and a papa. For being a father is the highest calling, and I believe that the example of a father can impact generations. If the story of my life was documented from the time I was 21 years old, when Mason was born, until the day he died, when I was 42, it would make perfect sense why Mason ended up in the situation he did. He loved all the things I loved, including drinking, using drugs, and always chasing the next adrenaline rush. He also loved his family, he loved fishing, he loved the outdoors. But as he spent time with his father doing all the fun stuff, he learned to love a cold beer, a bottle of whiskey, chewing tobacco, cigarettes. These were always involved. There should have been no surprise that he incorporated all of these things into his daily routine. The 21 days I'm about to embark on will be an example to my other children who still breathe the air of this fallen world. At the end of April, I started a 21-day fast where I only consumed water. In the middle of the 21-day fast was the anniversary of Mason's death. I choose to do 21 days for lots of reasons. The age I was when he was born, the age he was when he died, the amount of time it takes to break or to create a new habit. The 21-day fast was done with the primary intention of hearing the voice of God and gaining clarity so I could distinguish the voice of good from the voice of evil. One of the byproducts of that fast was having the confidence to know that difficult things can be accomplished. I will start every day of the 21 days with meditation and prayer, followed by reading the Bible. Some of the things I plan to accomplish are as follows: to write this book and maybe a second. I'm going to write a song and maybe an album. create a business that I've spoken about for 10 plus years. Doing youth ministry after Mason's death led me to preaching on a temporary basis and ultimately being asked by a few people to start and lead a church myself. I am not, nor will I ever be, part of a denomination or follow any doctrine other than the Bible itself. There is a need for normal people who are extremely flawed like myself to simply be an encouragement to others and look at the world through a biblical lens that hasn't been altered or perverted by man. I truly believe most people could accomplish more in 21 days than they've done in their entire lives. Today is July 29th. I am also going to learn to play the guitar. In addition to that, I'm going to fast for the middle 7 days. A neighbor and a good friend of mine, along with many other family and dear friends, have health issues that I believe can be healed, and I'll be specifically fasting and praying for the healing of the sick. An incredibly dear friend of our family is in the middle of a fight for her life, and I believe that the power of life and death truly rests in the words that we speak. I believe that there are healers all around us, and I encourage everyone, regardless what you believe in, to start speaking the words of healing over your situation instead of saying words like cancer or disease or autoimmune. Just start repeating the word healing. As I meditate this morning on the people that are suffering, I just say healing, 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 healing. Ultimately, this book is a book of healing hearts, minds, souls, and spirits. And those all will be healed, especially my own. And it is my belief that the body will also be healed. I also have a family member who is a healer and doesn't realize their full potential yet. At the conclusion of this book, I feel like they will. They will realize that they were truly created for what they were truly created for, and that the things that they would like to be are something that they already are, and the evidence is all around them. My last acknowledgement before this book starts is to my family. I love all of you, even the ones I'm not blood related to. But most importantly, my immediate family. Starting with my wife, Rochelle, my daughters, Lish, Avery, and Abigail, and my boys, Mason, Jack, and Maximus. I love you, and thank you for never giving up on me. My last section of acknowledgement / forward, or whatever comes at the beginning of a book, is what I have written. The style of this book will be written in the style of how I speak, communicate, and live my life. That means it'll be spirit-led. It will flow with no predetermined organization or path, and it may or may not be all over the place. I will tie things together in a way that makes sense to me. My hope and prayer is that whoever reads or listens to this will be encouraged, moved, and led to a higher calling. I will also make available all my notes, and much of that will become part of the book. I spent much of my life, actually most of my life, embellishing, lying, and manipulating, even if just a little bit, but definitely sometimes a lot. I was so concerned and worried about what others thought of me, I would conform or pretend to be things I'm not. My goal is simply to keep myself in check and to stay truly authentic. I believe the reason Joe Rogan has the most popular show in the world is because he's comfortable with who he is. He speaks his mind, and when he's wrong, he admits it. Even though he does not identify as a Christian, his character and the way he treats people is very much Christ-like. I intend to write this book in the same authentic manner as that. I will write this book the same way I preach. Whatever floats out of my mouth is what it'll be, and if I find out later I was wrong, I'll be the first one to admit it. Chapter 1. Maisons Dead. Screaming is the first thing I remember, followed by the feeling of being launched upward and forward. I was completely wet from perspiration, screaming so loud. I felt like I was stuck in a dream. Then I started to notice the pain. It felt like my head had exploded. The only way I can describe it would be a bolt of lightning being forced through the center of my brain. Solid, hot metal in a liquid form burning. Once again, I noticed I'm wet. The entire bed is wet, like every ounce of moisture left my body at the same time. I can't quit screaming. I'm pushing and pulling on my head, screaming. My wife has wrapped herself around me, instantly praying and asking what's wrong. I say nothing, I just keep screaming. It felt like 10 minutes before the pain went away. It might have been 10 seconds. I have no idea. My wife calms me down. My wonderful, beautiful wife holds me and comforts me back to sleep. A few hours later, sometime around midnight, we are woken up. It's my mother on the phone. I say my usual, "Hi, Mama." She replies, "Mason's dead. He killed himself." I have a blurry memory of the following 3 days. I don't think that my recollection of it is in any way accurate, but it is the way I remember it. It felt like I was both trapped in a dream and also unable to sleep, aware of my surroundings but incapable of functioning. I believe I experienced death. I know I experienced the feeling of a bullet passing through my son's head. The pain was intense but over quickly. The pain that followed could not be measured. I believe Yahshua, the Savior, was holding me and comforting me for the next 3 days. I have almost zero recollection of that time. It was like I was outside my body, watching what felt like 100 family members and friends surrounding me, and my house and my family. I was aware but had no control. I knew without them I would die. The comforting touch of my wife never left, and the soothing sound of my mother speaking in what can only be described as a heavenly language. I'm aware of Darla, my wife's mother, my other mother, rubbing my head and holding me as I lay on the ground. My beautiful girls, Lish, my oldest, Avery, the center of the three, and my little Abigail, who I still picture the day I met her 5 years old. Her first words, "I love you, Papa." Back to the middle one, Avery. I owe you a lighthouse. I told you long ago I would build you one for your room. And that's a promise I have not yet kept. Lishy, my oldest and firstborn, although your life has not been fair, you were shaped and built for times like this, and you were more than there. My boys that still live, my Jack and Maximus, so young to deal with such tragedy, so young to face the identity, the pain caused from the lack of a father. Maximus, you're always so steady. Thank you for forgiving your dad, for giving me a second chance. And Jack, I feel your pain. You were drawn to Mason and you wanted more, so few times that you actually were able to spend together. I know that pain hit you so hard. The 3 days that I speak about, it felt like I went to hell and had my soul ripped out, like the devil himself had somehow won, had taken Mason's life and captured my son. It took 3 days for my mind to return, for my soul to engage, for my body to emerge. The devil had claimed victory, but he must not have known my family. All I could feel was misery, the depths of hell, the weight of the beast, the 10-horned demon that comes in the night, that steals your soul, that brings you fright. You would think by now the devil had learned to leave me alone, to give someone else a turn. My people followed me to the depths of hell, to eternity. They wrapped me tight and would not let go. They came from near and far and did everything that they could. I believe my memory was blocked from those days as protection from what took place. I truly believe my soul was gone. It had to be rescued from who it belonged. It took 3 days for me to return. As I became aware of my surroundings, I became aware of how life is supposed to be lived. A community of family and friends that are indistinguishable between blood relation. I'm so blessed for the family I have. The greatest gift, but also the friends that if people didn't know, would have appeared to be brothers or sisters or cousins, new acquaintances that jumped right in, people who saw a need and answered the call. What happened next? It was a manic state, re-entering life with a debt to pay. I took it out on everyone. I burned bridges. Someone had to pay. I had to be shown a new way. I spoke the way I acted from the time I woke. I thank all of you who dealt with me, who held me down and wouldn't let me leave when I went crazy and wanted to hurt everyone. When you created physically, there was such tragedy. There's a different burden that you bear, a different cross you must wear. It wasn't just my blood that created my son or my DNA or my family tree. It was my life. It was who I chose to be. At one point, I feel he hated me. And rightly so. I chose myself selfishly, abandoned my baby. I had tried to become what I thought was cool, what I thought other people would be impressed by. My son learned that having a good time was accompanied by alcohol, sometimes drugs and nicotine. For some reason, there was always something that was added. To me, for whatever I was doing, it was always a substance. Like life isn't good enough, it had to be accompanied by Adderall and whiskey. Everything had to be pushed to the edge. My son not only looked like me, but in many ways he acted identically to me at 21 years old. He loved fishing, he loved the outdoors, and he loved to party. I came to realize later that the love to party was a cry for help. It's an escape from reality, because his reality was that when his mother and I got divorced at 3 years old, he spent most of his time with her. And I'm so grateful for her, who put everyone else on the back burner and poured every ounce, her and her family, of their beings into him. But oftentimes his father was no more than a couple miles away and would choose himself over his son. It's taken me years to put this down on paper, because until now, I hadn't been able to forgive myself or deal with the fact that I often chose myself and my own selfish desires over spending time with my precious little baby boy. Mason's death, what was the cause? The physical was a 9mm self-inflicted to the head. The real cause was a child who had been abandoned by his father, and the time that was spent, although it was fun and loving, and we have thousands of incredible memories, it was always fueled by substance abuse and the heightened importance of being tough and being able to do things that the world thought were cool. The example leads to emptiness and a false sense of where your happiness truly comes from. I created a kid that chased dopamine hits that were followed by what's next, instead of culturing a child who craved true relationship and closeness through giving, because that's where true joy comes from. It comes from the abundance of your own heart. There were many factors that all took place at the same time. It was the start of May 2020. Right at the beginning, there was fear about everything, coming from everyone. Fear from one side that people were going to die. Fear from another side that people were trying to kill us. Fear, fear, fear. That's all there was. Fear led to division, arguing, and fighting among families, and relationships were lost. All of these factors going on simultaneously. Mason was working for me full time. He was running a crew for a restoration company. It felt like he was thriving, like things were going in the right direction. Our relationship had never been better. But then the lockdowns happened and Mason became isolated. And one thing that I had always done when I was bored or stuck at home was drink. If there were activities to do, I was stimulated. But when I was alone or bored, I always drank. I didn't realize those weeks of isolation leading up to his death. The fear, the news, the world, everything compounding day after day. And Mason had a tough day on that last day. And according to the coroner, he probably consumed somewhere in the neighborhood of a fifth of whiskey, along with whatever else he had to drink. The coroner also said that unfortunately, this was not a unique situation. That Mason at 21 years old, as a male in America, fit the stereotype for almost every young man that takes his life. They go through a hardship, they combine it with alcohol in mass quantity, they make a decision, and they do it. Mason was definitely struggling. Now that I put the pieces together. But when one consumes enough of the devil's blood, you make room for the devil to take control. The devil's plan was to steal much more than Mason's life from us. His goal, his mission was to take my family, to take my family's life, to take my children, and to make this event be the defining event of this family. Mason's death has led to the opposite of victory for the beast. What he did is wake up the warrior spirit of this family. I cannot take back all the things I wish I could do different in Mason's life. Mason's death has led to a blessing for the rest of my children. Although I am so far from who I want to be, I have recognized the importance of being a man, being a husband and a father, what it means to be the leader, to set the example. As Joshua surrounded by my family and all of heaven pulled me from the depths of hell, I rose looking for a fight that I believe has already been won. Rewind back to the start of this chapter, to Mason's death. Many people are shocked by my level of faith or my belief in the supernatural. I don't know why I've always believed so strong, but I will get into some of that later in this book. What I experienced on May 10th, 2020, in the early evening hours was quite simply my son dying. We lived roughly 3 miles apart from each other on that night. His life ended, and I believe the feeling of what can only be described as molten metal flowing through my head was the physical pain that he felt from the bullet. I think the screaming, the fear, and the water that left my body instantaneously was his soul, his spirit, his very essence being taken too soon. I believe that my screams were his screams, trying to take back what he had done. I believe the pain was his pain, knowing what his mother and father, friends and family would experience. I believe it takes tremendous faith to believe there is nothing, to believe that we are not connected, that we don't all have the same energy from the same source flowing through us. I consider Mason a martyr, killed by the fallen world, but through his death, many shall live, and he shall rise again, for he is already risen.